Alif, Dal, B. Adab. Islam amat menekankan pendidikan adab di kalangan umat manusia kerana dengan adab, seseorang mukmin akan menjadi manusia yang tinggi akhlak dan kepribadian diri. Islam menetapkan pelbagai adab seperti adab berguru, adab menjaga orang sakit, adab menziarah jenazah, dan adab-adab dalam pergaulan seharian. Dengan setiap perbuatan yang berlandaskan adab dan akhlak yang baik, maka seseorang itu dapat meraih kecintaan Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Kalam dari ulama Hasan Basri, katanya, "Wahai anak Adam, sesungguhnya siang kamu adalah tetamu dalam kehidupan kamu. Justru berbuat baiklah dengan tetamumu, kerana jika kamu berbuat baik dengannya, ia akan pergi dengan sentiasa memujimu. Tetapi jika kamu tidak berbuat baik kepadanya, ia akan pergi dengan mengecam kamu. Oleh itu, beradablah dengan waktu dalam hidup ini dan beradablah dengan Allah setingginya, agar dengan adab yang tinggi dalam menyantuni perintahnya, akhirnya menghasilkan natijah yang didambakan, iaitu menghuni syurga Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala buat selama-lamanya." Seorang penuntut IPT perlu mempunyai sifat sabar dalam menuntut ilmu, kerana sebagai seorang pelajar, pelbagai cabaran dihadapi selain mempunyai banyak komitmen dalam membuat kajian dan sebagainya. Oleh itu, kejayaan tidak akan tercapai tanpa adanya kesabaran, dan janji Allah itu pasti. Syurga kepada orang-orang yang sabar, termasuklah juga dalam menuntut ilmu. Selain itu, seseorang perlu ada kesungguhan dalam menuntut ilmu, tidak bersifat sombong dan riak selepas mendapat ilmu, kerana sesungguhnya semua ilmu itu datangnya daripada Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Mahallah Sumayyah UIAM telah menjadikan bulan September 2021 sebagai bulan adab. Antara objektif program ini adalah untuk memberikan kesedaran tentang kepentingan adab di dalam menuntut ilmu dan menerapkan nilai-nilai murni yang perlu ada pada diri mahasiswa dan mahasiswi agar dapat diaplikasikan semasa berada di universiti atau di luar universiti. Adab mendahului ilmu, menjamin IIUM sejahtera. Saya dengan lafaz Bismillahirrahmanirrahim melancarkan program Adab Sumayyah 2021. Sumayyah beradab, Sumayyah cakna, Sumayyah number 1. Sekian, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Al-adab huwa dinu kulluh.
Adab is a lamp that illuminates the life of the seeker of knowledge. Sufyan At-Tahri.
Kecantikan yang abadi terletak pada keelokan adab dan ketinggian ilmu, bukan terletak pada wajah dan pakaian seseorang.
Kun khairan wa sayaudu khairulak.
Imam Malik has once stated, "Learn good manners before seeking knowledge."
Orang yang tinggi adab walaupun kekurangan ilmu masih lebih baik daripada orang yang banyak ilmu tetapi kekurangan adab.
In Surah Al-Furqan, verse 63, Allah had mentioned that a أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض حونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما, which means you have to speak nicely even to the ignorant.
Orang yang beradab sudah pasti berilmu, tetapi orang yang berilmu belum tentu beradab.
The importance of adab has been highlighted so many times, not only by the Prophet but also his companions. Ali radiallahu anhu once said that if you know the importance of adab, you would pray to Allah for more adabs instead of wealth.
Waqulu linnasi husna, which means and talk to people kindly.
Sepanjang hidup, kita sentiasa didengarkan dengan pentingnya adab dan akhlak sebelum ilmu. Yusuf bin Al-Husain ada menjelaskan hal ini adalah kerana dengan mempelajari adab maka manusia akan lebih mudah memahami ilmu.
According to Hamka, the eternal beauty lies in the beauty of adab and knowledge and not on one's face and clothing.
Qala Rasulullah, inna min ahabbikum ilayya ahsanakum akhlaqan.
Ilmu dan adab adalah dua komponen utama yang harus ada dalam sesebuah pendidikan.
Ali radiallahu anhu once said, if you know the importance of adab, you will pray to Allah for more adab instead of more wealth.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good evening. You're currently tuning in to another episode of Mahallah Sumayyah Online Talk, today on the topic of adab, a missing gem. Today we're going to discuss on how adab or manners, being the integral part of a society, are said to be heading downhill, while rudeness is apparently climbing to take its place. In other words, our discourse today is going to revolve around the increasing lack of manners in today's society. I'd like to welcome everyone to our talk today. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Izzati Nadira Azizi and I will be moderating today's discussion. On behalf of Mahallah Sumayyah and the collaborators, I would like to extend my warmest welcome to our speakers, Professor Emeritus Dato Dzulkifli Abdul Razak, Rector of IIUM, and Brother Darich Roslan, the current President of IIUM Student Union. It is an absolute honor for us to have both of you here. So, whiny, arrogant, not being polite enough, the accusations directed at youth by the older generation seems to be endless. In today's society, in fact, it appears as though the majority of young adults and teenagers, they lack overall good manners and kindness, or in other words, they lack of adab. It is obvious that older generations, they hold manners in high regards, but as the generations get younger, the sense of the importance of manners, we can see that it decreases. I actually came across an article where someone said that our society has become so desensitized to rudeness and disrespect that these bad manners are ignored and even accepted. I know that would be so incredibly unfair to categorize all youth or younger generations as lacking in manners and morals, but the general trend would certainly suggest that there has been a major decline among many of them. But before we go further, please allow me to share a little bit of introduction of our two amazing speakers today. Professor Emeritus Dato Dzulkifli Abdul Razak is the current rector of IIUM. If we were to list his achievements and contributions, it would be endless. But Tan-Sri is a fellow of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia, the World Academy of Art and Science, and the World Academy of Islamic Management. In 2017, Tan-Sri was awarded the prestigious Gilbert Medal by Universitas 21 for his outstanding achievements in the internalization of higher education. Tan-Sri was also formerly the president of the International Association of Universities, IAU, which is the UNESCO-affiliated organization. Secondly, Brother Darich Roslan is the current president of IIUM Student Union. Previously, he held the position of Education Officer, IIUM Student Union, and Brother Darich was also part of the main boards of IIUM Law Society. So I would like to briefly explain the flow of our discussion tonight. We'll start our session with a presentation from Tan Sri Dato Dzulkifli, followed by a presentation by Brother Darich Roslan. And then we will proceed with some general questions to both speakers before going to the question and answer session. So without further ado, let's get started with the presentation by Tan Sri. Tan Sri, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sister Izzat. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu syafil anbiya mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Saudara Darwisy, the principal of Mahallah Sumayyah, Sister Sharizat, I think she's tuning in from Kuantan, if I'm not mistaken. Brothers and sisters, fellow students, I am indeed very delighted to be here, and thank you for the invitation. Grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having this session with you in a kind of face-to-face manner, and although not directly, not physically, but yet I think it brings the same idea of trying to create some discussion on a very important topic of adab. I quite understand where you're coming from. People are very critical over adab nowadays, not because of certain generation, not because of certain group of people, but I think the world has changed quite tremendously. I'll give you a simple example. During my time where we meet each other often, now we don't meet each other very often. We meet each other virtually in this manner. Yeah, and meeting in this manner opens up a different kind of a scenario, that you become quote-unquote anonymous in many ways, and therefore you become a little bit more braver in the context of if you are face-to-face. In normal situation, we are in face-to-face, you have a lot of filters, you have a lot of reservation before opening your mouth, because you are in direct confrontation with the person you are talking to. But now that does not happen anymore. I can hide under a name, I can hide under, whatever it is, and I can say whatever I want to say without having the feeling of being responsible over what I've said. Generally, this is what the social media is all about. And therefore, it appears as though people are not observing the decorum, the adab, the etiquette that we expect from another human being. Yeah? To me, adab is about you. Simple as that. Yeah, it's not about the act. It's not about a definition. Adab is about you. Adab is about me. Adab is about Darwisy. Adab is about yourself, Izzat. You are the adab. Therefore, you represent whatever you are, and that will be the manifestation that we will see today. I have some slides because this thing can get a little bit more complicated. So let me just try and illustrate with you. Ini Malaysian saja ke ataupun local sekali? International student sekali? Okay.
Okay.
I was given this topic, adab, a missing gem. Now my question would be, which one? Which is the gem in this picture? Is that the one that's glittering, or is that the one is in red, which is in front of the person? Imagine that person is a student or anybody, not necessarily a student. And then how do you decide which one, and how do you go about demonstrating the adab? So as I said, adab to me is you in its entirety. And therefore, to know adab is basically to understand who you are. And the question that I often ask, do you understand who you are? Do Izzat understand who Izzat is? Do Darwish understand who Darwish is? Or do I understand who am I? Now, if you don't understand who you are, therefore you will be at a loss of how to bring forward this particular person that you don't understand. Imagine you've got another friend. It's often easier to envisage somebody who is a friend and you do not know, or a stranger in that sense, because you do not know him or she is. You do not know this stranger, and how do you represent him to a person, to a crowd, or to a community that you are in? I think that is why oftentimes people read the bio of somebody. Like Izzat read my bio, so that you can understand who this person is and how to actually position him in a situation you are in, and therefore there is a kind of a decorum that you are trying to address. But if you don't understand this person and you do not know, and you don't know how to represent him or her, then it's going to be quite difficult to actually understand the situation you are in. So in this particular context, if you don't understand yourself, if you don't know who you are, then how do you represent yourself in a community or in a crowd or wherever you are? So the issue is therefore to understand who you are first. And I think this is one of the weakness of our education system, because it does not tell us to actually understand who we are. Yeah. When we go into our education system, the first thing we are told to read and write, and to spell, and to do things. Yeah. But we are never told to understand who you are. If you don't understand who you are, then you don't expect other people to understand you. Yeah. If Darwish do not understand me, then if Darwish do not understand himself, then he don't expect me to understand him. I think that's the very basic of what adab is all about. And that's why it becomes very complicated in this particular sense, because we do not know who we are. So I'm going to try to address this very, very briefly in this time that you allot me. It doesn't move. No, it doesn't. Sorry, okay. So in that picture just now, are you the gem that you are trying to dig in that particular, mind? Or are you the person that who you are with this heart that you're already endowed with? Yeah, there's nothing to search more and nothing else to search from outside, because you're endowed with that things that you are supposed to be, and that's the human heart, which resembles a kind of value that's already in you, whether you realize it or not, right? But just for the sake of discussion, I think when we talk about a person, there are 4 dimensions that you want to look at. Yeah, one is of course your physical makeup. As one of the sisters says just now, it doesn't matter how you look like or how you dress. That's who you are externally. Yeah. But there's also this other dimension, which is internal, your intellectual prowess, the whole emotional makeup, which is now the mainstay of what we are discussing today. Under the COVID environment, the emotional makeup seems to be very dominant over the other two. And certainly, the last but not least is about your spiritual makeup, right? And all these things is with you. All these things is you. Yeah, whether you lack one or the other, it doesn't really matter, but it represents you in one way or the other, and you cannot disown this. There's no way that you can disown one or the other. It's just that you do not know. For example, if you're intellectually not knowing yourself, then you will represent something which is quite deficit to other people around the world or the other people around you. Yeah, and this is, I think, the issue that we are talking about. And this is something to do with our own language, our own civilization, and our own tradition. And therefore, these English words sometimes do not mean very much if we want to talk about the colloquial sort of language. So, for example, when you talk about jasad, which is the physical thing, normally we use the word rupa. The colloquial word is the word rupa. Rupa is not about just appearance. It's also about the physical makeup of yourself. Rupanya macam mana? Normally, when you cakap rupa, you describe only the face, because that's the one that is describable. The rest, I think people do not talk it so much. Sama ada dia tinggi, sama ada dia gemuk, sama ada dia pendek. That's the one people will see just the muka. But that's not quite right. When you talk about rupa, it's everything that represents you physically in the context of the jasad, or some people use the word raga. Yeah. We talk about olahraga. What is olah? Olah means to be flexible. What is raga? Raga is your body. So athletes in our language, olahraga, because you are flexible in your physical makeup. So the word raga is the whole makeup, and these are words that we use in our colloquial way to describe that particular person physically. Yeah. Of course, roh comes from the word rohani. Some people use the word jiwa. The Malay word is jiwa, that also represents the soul, the spirit of the person. It's also a makeup, but it's more invisible. Yeah, the makeup is almost like the entirety of the physical person, but it is invisible, that you can't see it. But it represents the complete you. You cannot just say roh, it belongs to one part of your body or the other part of your body. It is a whole entirety, just like your physical makeup. All right. Then within that, there is this understanding of emotion. Now, emotion, the Malay word is rasa. And if you notice, orang Melayu selalu cakap tentang rasa. Saya rasa dia macam ini. Ya, perasaan saya macam ini. We are almost a very emotional being. As compared to other people, we talk about I think. Saya fikir macam ni. Kita jarang cakap saya fikir. Kita cakap tentang saya rasa. Because we are very emotionally sort of engaged rather than intellectually engaged. And therefore, bagi orang Melayu, generally, they are very emotionally sensitive. And that's why kita ada konsep like air muka. Yeah, air muka jangan diaibkan. In other words, you don't want to embarrass somebody. Even though I don't like what you are doing, but the way I want to say it publicly in such a way that you will not be embarrassed. Perasaan tidak terganggu. Yeah, air muka tidak jatuh in that particular sense, right? Whereas orang putih, orang barat, they don't care. If you're no good, they say you're no good in front of everybody else, but they don't feel embarrassed because that's not part of them. Yeah. Kita, that's why orang masyarakat Melayu, when you ask question, ada soalan, everybody keep quiet. Because they don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to ask stupid questions. They don't want to appear dumb. Yeah. Whereas in the Western environment, they just ask silly questions as it is. They don't care because at the end of the day, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Yeah. So kita perkataan malu ini is a very important word for us. Yeah. Kita tidak mahu dimalukan. Kita tidak mahu merasa malu dalam hal amal. But that has changed also. Yeah. Now people don't mind being malu because they do wrong things. Dulu we don't want to be malu because you do wrong things. Now it's okay. Now do wrong things is okay to be embarrassed because the value of malu now has lost. Kita kadang-kadang malu ni tidak bertempat kata orang. And the last word, which I think is a very important word for UIA, because you use the word budi all the time. Wadi budi, budi itu dan budi ini. Ya. But what is budi? Ya. Dalam perkataan Melayu, tidak ada perkataan intellect. Intellect is an English word. Tidak ada perkataan minda. Minda is an English word or foreign word, maybe Latin. Yeah, but we don't have those words. But that doesn't mean we don't have intellect. We don't have mind as such. We have, but we use it in a different word, and the word is budi. Yeah. So budi describes the mind and the intellect, and in fact the heart together. Yeah, it's a very hybrid concept. It's a very progressive concept. It's a very holistic concept. So bila kita cakap manusia itu holistic, menyeluruh, the word budi already resembles that, right? And this is something that I think most people do not understand. Lepas tu kita intellect. Kita katalah apa? Kita patut menggunakan perkataan intellectual, yeah. Whereas perkataan Melayu for intellectual is budiman. Orang budiman adalah orang intelek. Dan lebih daripada itu, orang budiman adalah orang yang bijaksana. Yeah, the wise man is the budiman. So the word budi has got a lot of meaning in it, and within that budi is the whole context of adab. Kerana orang budiman itu sudah tentu orang beradab, and therefore, if you don't understand what budi is all about, most likely, from my point of view, you will breach the adab, or to be honest, orang itu tidak beradab ataupun biadab. Right? So these are the things that we have lost. I don't know, and I'm quite ready to bet none of us were told about this when we were in school. I mean, none of us were told even that we're in university. Only recently, when we do the Ta'aruf week, we are trying to put this in so that it becomes now very, an awareness that when we talk about budi, this is what it means. And now I'm telling you, but budi is a culmination of intellectual of mind, and therefore we in university must be berbudi because we are the person who are supposed to be intellectually enlightened, to be mindful over the things that we do. It will be very, very disappointing for me, orang yang dah berilmu tetapi tidak berbudi in the sense of dia tidak pandai membawa ilmu itu ke tengah untuk menunjukkan dia orang yang beradab. Right? So you have to now understand yourself, who you are in this, at least 4 dimensions. There may be many more, but it will just complicate the discussion. Just understand this first of all. So when you walk out of the mahallah, yeah, or you are in public, how do you display yourself physically? Yeah, do you wear a jeans that is torn? Sekarang ni menjadi satu perkara yang nampaknya lumrah, ya. Pakai jeans koyak-koyak tak mengapa, kerana itu soal malunya sudah tidak ada. Alright, is that okay with you? If it's okay because you are just demonstrating to people outside who you are. Yeah, it's almost like, you know, if you walk out with your hair uncombed, if it's okay, it's okay. I will just say, oh, orang ni macam ini rupanya. Yeah, and that's my impression over you. And if you don't mind that impression be made over you, then it's okay, because you are going to suffer, quote unquote, the consequence of what you do. So all of this has got consequences. And that's why I say you are the adab. You are the one that display who you are in this particular context. And during my time when I was a student, when I was small, my father is very particular. My parents is very particular. And we've got this word mengatakan jangan coreng akar, jangan coreng jangan coreng arang di muka ibu bapa. Yeah. In other words, don't mutilate the face of your parents with a charcoal or something like that. Maknanya jangan memburukkan nama mereka. And our work, our duty then is to safeguard that dignity, that marwah, over anything else. We can be hungry, but we do not gadaikan marwah kita. You can be in the worst state, but your dignity is the last that you will sacrifice. Does that happen today? Is this something that you value? When you ask the missing gem, what is the missing gem? I think the missing gem is the marwah. The missing gem is that dignity that we talked about in our context, be it you're a student or otherwise. So this is a point that you need to understand as far as adab is concerned. From my point of view, and I will reiterate, it's about you. It's about each and every one of you in this particular context of adab. It is not anything apart from that, right? And this adab basically has got a kind of an association with the brain or the heart ataupun hati, yeah, and it's always in a state that is what you call balancing one another, particularly the brain and the heart. And this is where I'm going to get into. You need to know these two organs, the brain and the heart, because this is the one that almost sort of give you a dimension of where your adab is. How well are you balanced in your thoughts, and how well are you balanced in your feeling that describe who you are. Yeah? A person who do not know how to control his feeling, yang marah-marah selalu for no reason, yeah, will give you a different adab. Orang yang suka marah, lepas tu maki hamun, mencaci, write all sorts of nonsense in the social media, he or she is just displaying how much adab he or she got. All right, and that's about it. So you can write anything on the social media, you think you get away with it. No, other people is making judgment of who you are and what you are over the things that only what you said, but also how you said it, the intonation, the kind of words you use, yeah, the kind of precaution you take. Yeah? Sebab tu orang kata orang Melayu ni adalah orang bahasanya berlapik. Maknanya you don't go confrontational directly with somebody. You just use a very polite way of saying something quite indirectly. Sometimes orang pun kata susah nak baca orang Melayu ni because dia tak pernah cakap directly yes ataupun no. That is because we are very, very sensitive over the feeling of the other person, either when we say yes or no. All right? It's only the Western way of saying very directly yes or no, but in our culture that is not the way. I always give this example. When I was a child, my father just need to look at me in a certain way, then I know something is wrong, and I begin to correct myself because he has spotted something that I've done which is no good, right? But now, if I talk to my children, and if I give my children that different look, she will come back, or he will come back to me and say, "Why are you looking at me?" You don't get that subtleness of communication in the context of adab. I need to tell him, you have done this wrong, you know. But I cannot do that in a public space. In a public space, if there's something wrong with them, I cannot be saying, "Hey, you have done wrong, please," you know. But in our context, we just have to say it quite subtly and that person or she will receive that, vibes and understand what is wrong. But of course, in again, the non-Malay culture or the non-Eastern culture, generally they will say, get out. You're not here, you're not supposed to be a get out. Kita tak ada begitu. Kita tengok je, and then I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to join this conversation. It's not my conversation, not my company. So you moved out without people chasing you out of the thing. So there's the beauty of our language. There's the beauty of our culture. There's the beauty of being a Malay or a Malaysian in this particular context, which we quite generally has lost it. Yeah, and this is why I'm quite glad that Sumayyah brought this back so that we can discuss. You may feel it's irrelevant, that's fine, but this is what, when Izzat tanya why this is happening, we have lost it in general. We have not lived in concordance with what we say. All right, and over time, we tend to give this intellectual thing a bigger role. Why? Because the education system says so. Right? And that's why this university is rebelling against the KPI, for example. A KPI is just a number. The KPI tells you about your intellectual. If I ask you today, Izzat, would you want to have a sharp mind or a blunt mind? I'm sure you say, I want a sharp mind, Tansri. Yeah? Mananya, you want to be intellectually better, which is nothing wrong, right? But what is intellectually better when you're emotionally deprived? Because the question of emotion is just as important as the question of mind. And therefore, you are not that balanced person anymore. You don't have that rhythmic thing that I'm trying to show you. You are overpowered by your mind. You're overpowered by your thinking capacity. You have deprived your own feeling. You do not know how to actually look after your emotions. And hence, when students are locked down, what do? They think. Sometimes they overthink. Not only they think, they overthink. And what does that lead them to? They lead them to all sorts of negative things. So the depression, the suicidal tendency, all this because they overthink over their emotion. They do not know how to look after their emotions, how to cope with their emotion, because they are not trained to do so, because the intellectual has been, quote unquote, overdeveloped, over excess of the emotional sort of skill that they've got. And this is what it is wrong. And this is why I think so. The adab sometimes, killing yourself is biadab. No way, no two ways about it. Yeah. In fact, from religious point of view, it's even worse than biadab. That because you have been overpowered by your thinking capacity, I'm not saying that you cannot be smart. You can be smart, but you must be intellectually and emotionally smart so that it becomes balanced. And that's why nowadays people talk not just about IQ, they also talk about EQ. And in fact, they tend to say EQ is more important than IQ. You may be smart, but you're not sensitive to your environment. You're not sensitive to yourself. You're not sensitive to other people. You just say whatever you want to say. Everybody get hurt because you uttered some word that do not give them, a kind of a defense mechanism in this way. So I hope you understand what I mean when we talk about adab. It is about this balance. As smarter you are intellectually, you must be also emotionally better. In that sense, you must also be spiritually better and also physically better. So this is a balance that we want to observe when you talk about adab. Adab is not just about one thing. It's about the balance that you create over yourself. And people yang beradab will maintain this balance as much as they could through whatever means that is, right? So in other words, you develop intellectually, relatively your emotion becomes almost, shrink, or you lose control over your emotions, right? And that's why some people say smart people are normally very brutal, right? Why? Because emotionally they're out of control. People also say genius are normally, are abnormal. Why? Abnormally they are not able to control themselves. Yeah? Steve Jobs is a good example. Very intellectually well, but if you read his story, his life story, he's not emotionally a good person. He doesn't not know how to control his emotion. And there are many examples of this nature. So that is the first thing that you need to take cognition of. When you talk about adab, ask yourself, am I balanced in this respect? Yeah? particularly the physical and the emotional, the intellectual and the emotional, and of course the spiritual and apa ni, and the physical at the same time. These are the dimensions, just to bring you to the story. These are the dimensions that we talk about in the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. The national education policy talks about this in a balanced way. All right. And that is almost, to me, our user manual. Yeah. So if you are not taught, if you are not familiar, if you are not understanding the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, so you don't understand the user manual. In fact, you don't have a user manual. If you consider yourself as these four entities, how these four entities manage itself, how this four entity can be corrected over one another. It is all spelled in the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. If you don't have that, then you have lost one way of how to manage yourself educationally or otherwise in this particular context, right? So that is important, and that's why when we bring in the I think you probably can see this, yeah. Apa tu, kita punya sejahtera academic framework, we are basing this on falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. Yeah, so that you don't lose, although we may be introduced to you at a very late in life, better late than never. At least now we can bring back these four elements, of course, within other contexts at the same time, as far as IIUM mission and vision is concerned. Okay, so that is the first order of things. Now, let me just try and bring this. So from the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, how do you go to adab? How do you bring budi and sejahtera in? There's a total package that I would like to summarize it in one slide there, if I could, right? So you have that falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, FPK, and you have this word jari. Jari would mean one is jasmani. Okay, we talk about that, the rupa or the physical dimension of you. Okay, you have this emosi, which is normally residing in your heart, the kalbu. The heart here is not the jantung, it's a hati. Again, a very subtle way of looking at it. Orang Melayu tak panggil heart jantung. In this context, kita panggil hati. Sebab tu kita ada hati nurani, kita ada keras hati, kita ada busuk hati, kita ada baik hati. All the hati is that value, not the physical structure, is that value. Yeah, hati ni, dia baik hati. Doesn't mean the heart is good, tapi dia punya notion of being, unanimous, good gesture, very polite, and dia kata baik hati. And that's the word hati. Tapi kalau kita pakai hati tu, in our translation is liver. Yeah, we are not talking about the liver here. We are talking about that value that animates from the heart and how does it represents you, the rasa that you've got. Yeah, the rasa that you feel and the rasa that you also give outside as far as people is concerned. And then you have this intellect, which is called the budi. So you have the hand, you have the heart, and you have the mind or the head in one go. Right? And this is enough to define who you are. Right? When you are small until you are big, you have tangan, you have hati, you have kepala. As long as you are alive, you can do whatever you want. But you will not be any much better than the animal. Right? And that's why kadang-kadang kita tengok orang yang tak beradab ini, dia seolah-olah macam haiwan. And we make comparison. Yeah? We make comparison. Dia ni macam ayam, dia ni macam itik, dia ni macam babi. Macam-macam lah. Kita liken it. Because the behavior is almost animalistic. Instinctively. Yeah? Kalau makan tu gelojoh. Macam babi. Ini makan macam babi. Gelojoh. Ataupun dia ni bisa macam ular. People make that comparison because you are not that human until and unless you have got that roh in you. And ini, in this context, orang panggil ni pendidikan tanpa roh. The soulless education. Yeah? Ataupun tanpa adab, depending on how you want to use it. You are educated, somebody said tadi, you are educated, tapi you don't seem educated. You behave like an animal. Yeah? Ada ijazah, tapi perangainya macam hantu. That's another comparison. Yeah? But it's difficult to describe what hantu is all about. So you must be mindful. As I tell you just now, you demonstrate to the world who you are. Sometimes you demonstrate or we demonstrate to the world that we are an animal. Yeah? Sebab tu orang Melayu kadang-kadang agaknya panggil buaya darat ni. There's a real buaya. You know, and this perumpamaan all has got meaning in this particular context. Now, you can only be human when you have this, the fourth component that I talked to you about. And this is the one that is likely to actually make you that human being, because you have got these things that you need to consider. You've got the niyat, which is important. We are as good as our niyat. And that niyat leads you to a decision. Yeah? And that decision will lead to an action. So if your niyat is good, your decisions tend to be good, and therefore your action tend to be good. It's almost in that sense. And then when that is good, then we get into the intellectual dimension that I talked to you about, the buddhi. And that there's three things that you must remember. When you get into this buddhi, it's the buddhi bahasa, that's the rasa part. Yeah, as you communicate, you're also giving this expression at the same time. Yeah, and you've got buddhi perkerti, that's the rupa, that's your physical thing, your physical behavior, kita punya tingkah laku, that's part of the rupa, the externalities that we talked about. And the last one is buddhi bicara, that's a you within, the roh, the spirit. Yeah, so it covers all the three dimensions that I talked to you about. If you have this roh, which is well educated in terms of education, where the roh is alive. But if there is tanpa roh tadi tu, then I think there's a different education altogether that we really want to talk. So with the roh, you begin to create this human being that actually has got these three levels of things that we talked about. And this is the budiman that we talked about. So orang yang betul-betul beradab, tahu budinya, budi bahasa, budi pekerti, dan budi bicara, mereka adalah budiman. Ya, dan budiman ini adalah orang yang pandai memberi dan pandai menerima dan pandai membalas budi. Ya, this is another word. Ya, orang Melayu ada perkataan mengatakan orang berbudi kita berbahasa. In other words, there's always a reciprocal to it. Yeah, if I do something to you, you must give me back. Although it's not in the same amount, the same quantity, but you want to reciprocate. Kita membalas budi. There's another issue here. Ramai orang-orang sekarang ni tak pandai membalas budi. Cakap terima kasih pun tak pandai. Yeah? Saying thank you now is a difficult thing. You forget people to say terima kasih. Why? Because kita tidak pandai membalas budi orang. Membalas budi doesn't mean you give money. You give things. You just say thank you. You just appreciate. Terima kasih. Terima kasih. Itu pun tak ada sekarang ni. Yeah? And that is, I think, orang yang berbudi, bijak berbudi, dan bijak juga membalas budi. Dan dalam kepahaman Dewan Kamus Dewan mengatakan orang berbudi itu, budiman itu juga adalah orang berani dan bijaksana. You see the kind of quantification, the kind of description you give to this budiman. Berani, I think ramai yang tak berani, yang menegur. Yeah? Kerajaan buat salah, tak berani tegur. Rector buat salah, tak berani tegur. Pensyarah buat salah, tak berani tegur. Pelajar buat salah pun tak berani tegur. Kerana keberanian itu tidak ada. Ya? Kalau keberanian tidak ada, maknanya kebijaksanaan pun tidak ada. Because you do not know how to make judgment. To say what needs to be said when it ought to be said. Yeah? We do not just kowtow to anything that happens because that guy is more senior than we are, or that guy has got better status than we are. That is not the role of a budiman. Budiman will put things the way it is, no matter who. And that's why the university or the community is always in a balance, because there are people who check and balance what's happening in university. Rasuah, we don't tolerate it. It doesn't matter whether you're prime minister or ex-prime minister. Rasuah is not tolerable. It doesn't matter who you are. And you need to take a stand on this. You need to make a point that this is not something that is within our ambit, and we do not practice that. Yeah, it's no good saying no, but you practicing also. Tak kena lah. That's why I say just now, you are what you are as far as adab is concerned. So all of us, in a sense, wants to be this budiman. All of us wants to be this budiman who have these values endowed. And this is a value that at the end of the day, what we call adab. Yeah? Adab maknanya we hold an amanah to it. That amanah is a value that we hold dearly. This is amanah that has something to do with dignity. Ya, kita tidak mahu mengorbankan maruah kita. Kita boleh mati, doesn't matter, tapi biarlah kita mati bermaruah. Jangan kita mati katak. Mati katak ni digelik kereta, that's it. You know, nobody even care for you because you don't deserve it. You have no dignity left when you die. I think that's the strength of this adab is all about. You keep to dignity. So di UIA kita bercakap tentang amanah ni all the time. Ya, kita menyanyi tentang amanah, 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 amanah. But have you been keeping the amanah? Have you been keeping this? Yeah. I come back to your student life, for example. Do you switch off your lights when you go out of mahallah? That's part of amanah. Yeah. Do you make sure that the toilet is kept clean? That's part of amanah. Yeah. Do you come in time when you're supposed to? That's part of amanah. In other words, if you don't do this, then adab dah tak ada dah. The very instinct of it. It's not even dealing with human being. It's just dealing with things around you. The lampu, the toilet, the water, you know, the timekeeping. It's not even people. It's just dealing with things. You can't even manage that. Then I think you are too far away from what adab is all about. All right, and that's this amanah that we talk about. We are not talking about amanah yang really very meaningful. That if you are supposed to be locked down and stay in your mahallah, you have to be locked down because otherwise you will spread this virus across. And I therefore do not expect students to go out and cut the fence and move out. Itu totally kurang hajar, worse than biadab. You can't even keep that amanah. You are now not only threatening yourself, but you're threatening the whole community by your own irresponsible behavior yang dikatakan biadab. That is the amanah that you talk about. Do you have that? If you don't have that, then you need to check it. And this is what I see. The student union becomes important. You are now the custodian of this. You are the people who make sure that the amanah is kept. And that's why you're a student union. Yeah. But if you fail to do this, then you are also failing to exercise the amanah that's given to you as the custodian of the students. And this is what it means. I am the rector of the university. I have that amanah also. I have to make sure that it is done. Right? And that's why sometimes we bring in the police because we cannot control this anymore. And then we need to take other steps to make sure that the amanah is preserved so that the sanctity, the balance in the university becomes within our own control. Right? What is D? D is dakar. And I'm sure most of you have not heard of this word. This word is a very old word. Dakar maknanya berani dan cekal hati. Yeah, very courageous and very persevere. All right, and that is part of adab. That's why I say kalau kita nak menegur orang, kita mesti ada keberanian itu. Kalau kita tidak ada keberanian itu, kita nak tak apalah. Dia ni orang besar, dia rektor lah, dia Tan Sri ni. Tak mau. I've heard of this. Dia Dato, dia menteri. Biarlah, tak apa. Dia orang politik. Dia tak apa. We compromise on that courage. We don't have the courage to keep the amanah. Yeah, you don't have that perseverance to make sure that the amanah holds, because the amanah is the one that keeps everything alive. Not the politician, not the master, not anybody else, but the value that he or she holds. And that's dakar. Yeah? That's the courage, part of the adab that you want to have. Yeah? The other one is akhlaq. I think you know, as I mentioned to you, your behavior outside will be the mirror of who you are. Yeah? The way you walk, budi pekerti, the way you speak, budi bahasa, yeah? And the way you actually make decision, that is budi bicara. That represents you in terms of the akhlaq. There's a total you in this particular context. Yeah, you may be nice bercakap, tapi kalau dia punya apa itu tindak tanduknya kasar, it could be adab. Yeah, and you see this in the parliament, the so-called parliamentarians. We elect them to represent us, but they behave like monkeys in parliament. They talk like monkeys and they jump here and there. I don't expect my leaders to be like that. I don't want to be represented by monkeys in parliaments. It's very obvious to me. They lose my respect altogether. They may be a politician for all I care, but as far as adab is concerned, they are almost the animals that we talk to you about, because they don't have that decorum. Menjerit sana, maki sini, maki sana. That is what this. A parliament is an august place. It's almost equivalent to a mosque as far as politics is concerned. You don't do this in a mosque. Why do you do this in a parliament? Are you not educated, or are you not beradab, or you're just plain kurang ajar? And that's a notion that we need to hold to, and that's the standards that we need to hold to. And when we want to speak to a person, we need to observe that decorum, so that you be that particular person yang beradab, that you judge for yourself. Other people will judge you otherwise if you don't behave well. And the last one, B, is pestari, of course. The kebijaksanaan. Sometimes you want to give way because you just don't want to create havoc. Small things that do not make much difference. Never mind, kita beralah lah. Perkataan beralah, perkataan bertolak ansur ni adalah perkataan-perkataan yang besar dalam budaya kita. We give way, we tolerate. The English word is tolerancy. Melayu punya perkataan bertolak ansur, which is better than tolerancy. We tolak ansur. It's physically, it means that. I push and then you move a little bit, so that you make space for other people, so that you don't want to create unnecessary problems as far as that is concerned. And you give way, you tolerate certain things so that peace is observed. You don't have to stand on your, in this case, your amanah could be, could be sacrificed because it doesn't matter. We want to preserve the peace rather than, creating havoc, making demonstration for nothing, just because you want to say how powerful you are in this particular context. That is not important. So kebijaksanaan tidak ada, budi bicara itu tidak ada, rohnya tidak berfungsi, pendidikannya tidak ada roh in this particular context. So that is what all these things is all about. I think I've taken much of your time, but I just want to conclude. The adab is you, how you carry yourself, how you express yourself, how do you make decisions. It is about you. It is not about anybody else. You cannot say orang ini begitu gini dan saya kurang ajar because of dia. No, it is all about you. You need to understand yourself. You need to train to understand yourself. You need to keep in that level of balance that we talked about between the four elements, and that comes through education. And when I talk about education, it is not just a formal education. My father has never been educated, tapi dia beradab par excellence. Bapa kita tak pernah masuk universiti pun, tapi adabnya lebih tinggi daripada kita yang dapat ijazah ada PhD ni. Mengapa? Kerana dia terdidik. Kita hanya berpelajaran. There are two different things. The English word education means two things, but the Malay words are different thing. Orang yang terdidik ada adab, orang yang berpelajaran mungkin tidak ada adab. We are educated in the sense that we can read and write, but we do not know how to conduct life. Our father may not be able to read and write, but he or she, a mother, can conduct life. Dia ada 10 orang anak, semua anaknya jadi manusia. Sekarang ni kita ada 2 orang anak, 1 jadi setan. How does it happen? Because kita tidak ada adab dalam mendidik anak-anak kita. Sedang bapa kita, ibu kita ada adab dalam mendidik anak kita. That's how powerful adab is. That's how relevant adab is. And that's how adab needs to be understood in its complexity, in its total instinct, not about learning A, B, C. Adab ini. It's not that. It's not a safe-fair thing. It is an embodiment of values that make life what it is, so that you become the person that we ought to be, at least in the eyes of the Creator, in the eyes of the society, and in our own eyes, because we have that value in preserving who we are. So I will stop there. I can go on, but I will give Darwisy a chance and see, then we can have the question and answer. So thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Tansri, for your wonderful insight and wisdom. One of the many points that actually caught my attention is when you say that people always aim for sharp intellect, but at the same time, they are emotionally deprived. And for me, it's understandable how many people are thinking that way, because in today's scenario, if you are uneducated, then you do not stand anywhere unless and until you have money. And for me also, the importance of manners and adab is terribly underestimated. Well, intelligence, talent, skill, and confidence can take you a long way. Having good manners and adab, or simply being kind, will take you further. And in many cases, having manners and a genuinely kind spirit put people at some kind of an advantage for jobs, scholarships, promotions, and so many others. So as stated just now, having balance of yourself between emotions and intellect is very much essential for a person to grow. And when you mention how many of us do not have the courage to speak up against people with titles or those who are superior than us, I realize that people often instinctively played it safe by keeping quiet. And their frequent conclusion seems to be somewhere along the line that when in doubt, keep your mouth shut. So that's a very interesting presentation by Tan Sri. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Before we move on to Brother Darwish, just a little housekeeping. If you have any question to both speakers, please drop them into the comment section and I will bring them up during the question and answer session later. So without further ado, let's move on to Brother Darwish.
Alright, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma salli wa sallim salatan kamilah wa sallim salaman tamman ala sayyidina Muhammad alladhi tanhallu bihi al-'uqad wa tanfariju bihi al-kurab wa tuqda bil hawaij wa tunalu bihi al-gharaib wa husnul khawatim wa yastasqal ghamamu bi wajhihi al-karim wa ala alihi wa sahbihi fi kulli lamhatin wa nafasin bi 'adadi kulli ma'lumin lak. Allahumma ja'al jam'ana hadha jam'an marhuma wa tafarraquna min ba'dihi tafarraqan ma'suma wa la taj'al fina wa la ma'ana shakiya wa la mahruma birahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. First of all, I would like to appreciate and thank Sister Izzatun Nadirah, if I'm not mistaken. And I got to know, it came to my attention that she is not feeling very well tonight. Let's pray for her. Speedy recovery, Izzatun Nadirah, inshallah. And second of all, I would like to bid my respect to our beloved Tan Sri Rector, Professor Tan Sri Dr. Professor Emeritus, Dr. Dzulkifli Abdul Razak. And it also came into my attention that today is his special day. And me, on behalf of the students in IIUM, would like to pray for your best, Tan Sri. May Allah bless and ease your journey and give you the best reward in akhirat, inshallah. And before I begin, I would like to congratulate the team from Sumayyah, Madam Shamsina, and also the whole committee for committing this some effort to put this into picture when we are still struggling during this pressing time of COVID-19. Somehow one entity initiate something about adab and virtue. I believe it's a good exposure and good effort from the team, inshallah. May Allah bless. And actually, if I can share honestly, I do share with Madam Shamsina. I'm not the one who can give sharing about adab. I'm not good enough. Especially when I got to know that Tan Sri Rector is delivering some sharing also during the same event. And I believe it's an opportunity. Maybe this is my first not my first session with Tan Sri Rector, but maybe my first session to discuss about something in details with Tan Sri Rector. And I would like to take that honor. And what I can say is that I would like to concur with whatever Tan Sri have said. Tan Sri Rector had explained the topic in very detail, has dissected it into a lot of concept in which I can't really guarantee I could deliver the same thing to you, to the audiences. But however, maybe on behalf of students, Tan Sri, maybe we can discuss a bit and on how students should review this topic. And especially, I would like to invite everyone, including Izzatun, including me myself, on how we should go into the basic about doing things right, inshallah. And the topic is adab or missing gem. Whenever someone mentioned gem, and I would always imagine something precious. I believe everyone will imagine something precious, and every time I imagine something precious, I will imagine a diamond or something beautiful, and I portray it in this slide. I would like to share. I understand gem as diamond, and I would like to agree with the committee for having this topic, adab a missing gem. If I'm not mistaken, first earlier they put the topic as adab a hidden gem, and somehow they changed it before our session, and I see the wisdom why they changed from hidden to missing, because gem, a diamond, for example, when we look at YouTube on how people find and go to forest, to mountain to find diamond, it's actually there. Just like what Tan Sri said, Adab is you. You are already existed. You are existing, and you are still in your journey. You are not. Kita masih ada lah. We are in existence. We are present. So what maybe the question is, where is the wisdom? Why don't I can see you, the real meaning of humankind, for example, and then I think there's some things that I would like to discuss, and I would like to invite to discuss about these four things. Firstly, what is adab, and I would like to portray as well my understanding about my understanding. There is three type of adab, and maybe Tan Sri and Izzatin can add up and can disagree or whatnot. But I would like to share the wisdom behind how can we understand behind these three type of adab. And also, I would like also to touch about when we discuss about anything, we can discuss, and we are free to use some sort of intellectual resources into our discussion to look competent and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we must conclude, we must accept that the top of every discussion should be the conclusion from what Allah taught us and what our religion taught us. And I believe this is also opportunity for me to share on how adab or manner, for example, is different from what our religion taught and what we can't find in any other resources except by our religion. And last but not least, since this is also being made in accordance to Taweh, I would like to also, if the students are there, I would like to share my advices to them, inshallah. And let's talk about adab and akhlaq. Tan Sri and Izzatin, I believe adab is something that we talk, it's not something extraordinary. We hear about it every day, we talk about it every day and whatnot. But something, when the committee invite me to share about this, I come into confusion. Tan Sri, maybe you can give your opinion on this. What is the difference between adab and also akhlaq? And somehow in my research, I found that adab is those two sentence or two terms was coming from Arabic term, which is adabun, in which its means manner or morality, and akhlaq its mean habit. And this is where I find the term or concept of a missing gem is very beautiful, because of what? Because in hadith, that our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that I was sent to humankind to perfect good character, to perfect the community good character. He used to perfect, which means that the character is there, but somehow missing. So our Prophet is being sent to us to perfect our character. And I believe that shows, that portrays how important our religion is. Maybe I'm not sure, because Islam comes, chronologically it comes from Prophet Ibrahim and Muhammad and whatnot. Before that, we don't use the term Islam, but Prophet Muhammad is sent to perfect the humankind. Before Muhammad is sent to us, maybe humankind is already there, but the Islam we learn today is to perfect our life. I mean, so And also there is also one hadith from Sunan Tirmidhi. Prophet said the most complete believers in faith is those who are among them having the best manner, in which I would like to concur with Tan Sri again. This adab and the our good character, our manner, we can never deny that this adab, it is actually deeply rooted in the principle of faith, which Tan Sri said just now. It's some sort of concerning brain and also heart in the discussion of organ wise. But I would like to also suggest that Imam Al-Ghazali also defined the same. Imam Al-Ghazali defined adab or akhlak as something that in Malay, I'm sorry, the satu sifat yang mana dia tertanam dalam hati. Yang mana bila dia ditanam dalam hati tu, dia melahirkan perbuatan-perbuatan dengan sangat mudah tanpa perlu manusia itu timbulkan fikiran untuk melakukan sesuatu. Maksudnya akhlak tu it's a habit lah. We did for example, if a man see someone pregnant in a bus, so he don't need to think, to spend a lot of time that to understand that he should give the seat to the pregnant woman and whatnot. And I believe that's how we should understand about adab and akhlak. And that is my understanding on this. And I would like to hear maybe Tan Sri can also explain in details with regard to his view, and also Izzatun Nadira. And secondly, I would like to touch on this. There is 3 types of adab. We understand that adab is a missing gem. It's there already. And somehow we understand as well that a diamond, for example, when someone found it, usually they found a diamond in a very, not a good way, not a good environment. Somehow it's accumulated with mud and whatnot. And to ensure the diamond look good, to ensure that diamond is sellable, people want to buy it, they usually will take it into a factory and then shape it and then clean it and then engrave it, and then only people will say, okay, this is diamond. Or otherwise, common people, ordinary people like me, maybe we tend to thought of it as just a normal stone or whatnot. And that's how I believe to understand adab is something that we should learn, and we should in a very modest way and humble way, we should improve from time to time. And I believe there is no end of learning and on how to improve adab. It's an endless journey, and until we receive the wisdom in akhirah, inshallah. And now I will go to the 3 types of adab what I mentioned just now. I believe there is 3 types of adab, which is first adab to our creator. Secondly, we have adab to ourselves, and last but not least, adab to the others. And what does I mean by these 3 types of adab, and what is the important wisdom behind it, is that before we understand our adab or our manner towards ourselves, it is at most important for us to clarify and understand what is our adab to our creator. And Imam Al-Ghazali had mentioned this clearly in his kitab Bidayatul Hidayah, or the beginning of guidance. He said that adab to our creator is indeed, there's a lot, but the most important thing is, first, we need to have humility. Humility means I'm not sure, modesty, the same thing, zuhud and whatnot, and know our position. For example, in Surah Furqan, this is a beautiful ayat in Quran. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Wa ibadur rahmanil ladzina yamshuna 'alal ardi hauna wa idza khatabahumul jahiluna qalu salama. Just now Tan Sri Rector said that, do we understand? The most important thing is we should understand who we are. And how can we understand who we are? There's a lot of concept Tan Sri shared with us just now, but I would like to share with you this one concept where Allah shared in the Quran. Allah mentioned about the best kind of servant that he loved to look forward, which is وَعِبَادِ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. The most loved servant is the servant who walk throughout the world with hauna, with this kind of humility. And this ayah is somehow portrayed that there is a test on how we can know someone is humid, modest or not, which is in the continuous ayat. Wa idha khatabahumul jahilu naqalu salama. Who is the one who have the humility? Those who, when he talk and when he meet jahilun, people with bad manner, people with negative, full of negativity, when they meet that kind of people, khatabahumul jahilun qalu salama. They didn't respond in any other ways but just say salam, Assalamualaikum, peace be upon to you. And I believe this happen in everyday life. We whenever, in whichever space and situation we are being put into, we always see somehow some complication, people with this kind of behavior, people who have that kind of manner in which we somehow can feel uncomfortable. And this happen in our daily life. And Allah taught us that to be a person who have humility, it's despite of whatever person you face and have experience with, you should always be humility. You should always give the best thing from your inner self, and just saying good things lah. And I believe this is what we should improve in terms of our society, especially youth. And I think it's beyond generation. Everyone should improve this, especially during this modern world where people tend to use media as their platform of having life. And indeed, to improve, we should understand first what is adab. And let me go back. Adab to our creator. First, to have humility, to know our position. And secondly, to also have the good thought towards our creator. For example, in Quran, there is a lot of things, there is a lot of story that Allah shared, that whatever happened to us, that situation, whatever situation we are being put into, there must be very big wisdom behind it. And I believe during this COVID-19 situation, we oftenly being put into some sort of situation that we need to struggle to survive. We can see that some group of families, their parents lose their job, and somehow we need to undergo class online without facilities. There is a lot of struggle. And I believe to have a good adab to our creator is to not put the blame on him, to not put the blame on the situation, even to not put the blame on anything else, but try to find wisdom behind it. And I believe that is one concept of adab. And secondly, the also in an important adab is adab to ourselves. Adab where we are discussing about manner, not to others but to ourselves. And I believe we among the important adab to ourselves, everyone can also discuss and relate to your own self. But for me, I always remind myself to first love myself, to appreciate, and also to take care of me, to take self-care in a very, very beautiful way. Because if we don't love ourselves, how can we expect people will love us? Because I believe this world is very vulnerable, especially the current modern world. It's very vulnerable. Whatever we do, someone might get disagree, someone might agree. it's very hard to fulfill the expectation of everyone. So when we meet counselor, they always remind, don't live your life by everyone's expectation. Just live your life to fulfill your dream, to fulfill yourself. So I believe that is the biggest thing that we should improve, right? And especially when we live in this modern era, we tend to look at others' achievement and success. And I believe it's not it's a nature to look at others and to imagine things. But somehow, if we were to implement adab to ourselves, make sure when we look to them, we don't abuse the situation to build complexity or insecurity that will be barrier for us to move on. And I believe if we were to do that, it's somehow it's not a good behavior to ourselves, and it somehow have some sort of bad consequences to our future even. And last but not least, also we have adapt to others. Adapt to others means adapt to anyone, anything, and any kind of other creature. And what I can understand is that when we understand our adapt to our creator, and when we understand our adapt to ourselves, we can somehow find the answer to how should we have the manner, what kind of manner we should have towards the other. And it's the others mean anything. Like we should do humility to everyone. We should love ourselves. When we love ourselves, we also understand that we should love everyone else. And I believe this is the three kind of adab that I will share. And I think the time is quite consuming, and I would like to proceed, and maybe we can discuss about this in a later date, inshallah. And I would like to emphasize this is the part where I believe something different with what we can find in Western discussion, and also what we can find in what our religion has teach us. If I were to research in Google and to read article, and when I were to look in details, the best concept of adab, the best concept of good manner we can find in article, I find this one concept which called golden rule. Golden rule means you should treat others as how you like to be treated. And just like if I were to expect people to respect me, of course I should respect people. If I expect that if I am blind, I'm a blind person, and if I should always put the shoes onto them. For example, if I expect that if I have no money, and I tend to think that people should help me, of course we should help the people who have no money. So that that's the golden rule. That's the best level I can find of good manner in the intellectual world. But somehow in Islam we are beyond that, which is the concept of itsar. Itsar means interests of others are more important than yours. I think the story of companions during the war is very much relatable, where when they are dying, but there's only one cup of water, and then they pass towards one and another until the first one died. So that is the real concept of itsar, in which when we talk about good manner, Islam also teaches us to understand that it might involve the right of others. We value rights. If we were to for example, during my school, my primary school, there is always a bus or a lorry of Milo coming to our school, and we students are very excited to queue up and to have one cup of Milo. And somehow, me myself during that time, I believe I will always queue up more than 3 times, even though the rules is only one person, 1 cup. And somehow I got to know that some of my friends didn't get the cup of Milo, their cup of Milo. So if we were to put our interest more than others, we are actually tend to take some people's right, and I believe that's mean if we were to say that having a good adab is only about us, it's totally wrong. Having a good adab to ourselves, it's actually will affect our environment. Whatever we do, it will never affect only us. For example, having a good manner in completing vaccination, for example, one can never say that vaccination is only for himself. But because if he didn't take the vaccination, the whole communities are affected. And I believe that somehow relatable to our concept today. And last but not least, I think this is my humble advice to everyone that I can share. Being kind is so much interesting in the way that you can be kind in your own way, in any kind of way, because to move into kindness, to put yourself trying to do good is actually good already. And if I can give 4 advices to students, I will start with, first, just be good to everyone. For example, if I'm a student, I should be good to my friend, to my colleagues. I should be good to my lecturer. I should respect the administration, and even I should respect my junior. And I would like to share this one story about a mosque in Oman. There's one mosque in Oman where my lecturer shared about this. When he went into Oman to come into one mosque, this one mosque is a mosque that there's a lot of people who came there to seek knowledge. And what's special about it is that the mosque have some extraordinary rules. Firstly, the people come there, they can never introduce themselves except by 2 things. Firstly, what is your name? And secondly, where are you coming from? Other than that, the question to ask about where are you studying, your educational background, that's all prohibited to be asked and prohibited to be answered. And the wisdom behind that is that because that mosque is very well known of having a good intellectual discussion among the people inside it, and they just want to create an environment where people will be put into the same level as everyone. There might be architect in the mosque. There might be scholars in the mosque. They might be cleaner even in the mosque. Learning in one circle and having the same regard to everyone. And the environment that you can see in that mosque is very beautiful because we somehow has no barriers to process any kind of argument or to process any kind of advice or thought of everyone. For example, if I were a scholar, a very key figure scholar, and if I were to be put into a circle having a discussion where in the circle there is a lot of primary school students, there might be some kind of situation that I would, who are you to give me this kind of advice? And I believe to be good to everyone means to first put aside who you are and just be a human. At the end of the day, all of us are servant. And secondly, I would like to also advise that adab before knowledge. This is also being mentioned in the earlier part of our session where the committee from Mahallah Sumayyah said this. Al-adab fawqa ilm. I believe this is something that Malaysia should improve at large because we for example, we spend some students spend 2 years to learn language, but how many years we spend to learn about adab. And I if I can put into example, I inquired to my friend from Japan how can they be different in terms of having a good character and also manner. They say that since they are kindergarten, they spend a lot of time to learn about adab and about having a good manner and whatnot. So I believe it's not like I would like to suggest to the university to include 2 years for all students to learn adab. Please don't, Tan Sri. But I believe we should improve on this to not regard adab as part of learning process. And if we were to regard adab as some learning process, I think we just put a very big barrier towards improving as a human being. And there is a story about Prophet Musa where I believe if I were to share, it's going to take a long of time, but I would skip it for now. And my third advice is make your good manner as habit. And this is my most important suggestion to students, especially. And maybe it can be relatable to any group of community, even lecturer, administration, our other staff members. To have a good manner is something that you can work for it, but to have a very sincere good manner, you should make it as a habit. For example, I can always attend a session where we have big people, like I can attend a session with Tan Sri Rector, Dr. Dzulkifli, Razak, our Deputy Rector, and I will always act like I'm a good student. I will always behave. But if I were to be put into different kind of situation and having different kind of manners towards my friend, my colleague, or my lecturer, I believe the good manner in the first situation is just nothing. And to have a good manner to in everywhere, in any place and any time, you just need to make it as manner. And that's how, actually portraying what akhlaq really means, in which we do the thing, we express our inner self through our physical expression without even thinking. And I believe it's take a lot of efforts to ensure your faith, your brain and your heart clean and have that kind of concept. It's not only intention that you grab for any opportunity or whatnot. And last but not least, I would like to also suggest to the new intake student, you as a student, you should choose your circle, and you also choose your friends, but don't ever invalidate others. For example, in Surah Furqan, I believe there is one verse who say that, who portray that in akhirat there is a lot of group of people who always, in akhirat there is a lot of group of people who keep saying that they are regretting their life during the dunya period. Some group of people, they regret about how they behave towards their parent. Some group of people, they regret of how they spend their time to do some ibadah, to read Quran and whatnot, to sujud, to perform salah. And there is also one group of people who also Allah mentioned in Quran, they are also regretting their life. And their regret is not about other things, but they are regretting of being friend towards some kind of friend. And I believe this is real, because me as a student, as currently still studying and try to finish my study, I tend to see a lot of various kind of group and various kind of circle. If I and last but not least, the option to choose our circle is actually in our own hand. It's not upon others. We can't blame on which circle we are being put into. So if you want to find a good circle, find the circle in a good environment, like masjid, like any other place. Like for example, being committee of Mahallah Sumayyah. Of course, there is a lot of good people there. and don't put yourself into a place where students play futsal until 4 a.m. Of course, I'm not saying that they are not good circle, but student people who misuse their time somehow tend to misuse their life even. So please, to all new intake student, I believe this is some sort of advice from me, and of course I'm also still improving myself. Just a bit of advice from your friend perhaps. And last but not least, I would like to finish my presentation by saying that when a tree bears fruit, its branches get lower. And this concept is somehow very important for us to understand that if we are in an educational institution, our environment, the things around us, we always talk about intellectualism. We always talk about knowledge. We talk about Buddhi. We talk that we are proud of being called garden of knowledge and virtue. So being put into a garden of knowledge, which means we have a lot of trees. Our environment is very green, and there must be a lot of virtues that can be imagined as a fruit. So I believe being put into this kind of place, how Islam taught us, we should imagine that the people, the community within this garden, they should be humble, more humble than people in not within this kind of environment. And I believe it's not only towards certain group of people. It comprises the whole community in IIUM even. And I believe that will be my thought about adab, and I would like to discuss more and to have some sort of opinion and also insight from Tan Sri and also our moderator Izzatun Nadir. Thank you. Sorry for taking quite time.
Thank you. Right. Thank you so much, Brother Darich, for your wonderful insight and opinion on our talk today. It's interesting when you talk about adab being similar with habit, if I'm not mistaken. And manners are deeply internalized. I realize that people behave well out of habit, even if their natural inclinations wouldn't lead them to do it. Because we will automatically stand for an old lady on a train or hold the door open for the person behind us if it is ingrained in our society from the within. But I find from people nowadays, including me, the so-called Gen Z, some of us, we have the perception that being kind and well-mannered in today's society makes a person seem lame or outdated. But it actually does not. And it is not lame to speak to everyone when you enter a room. It is not lame to say, excuse me, or even a simple thank you. It is not outdated to hold a door open for someone. It is never a waste of time to help somebody. And it is actually sad that we have to admit that politeness, patience, tolerance, and respect, or adab in general, have yet to become our way of life. And a lot more remains to be done to inculcate these virtues among us Malaysians, particularly the young generation today. So now that we've heard the views and insights from both of our amazing speakers, let's move on to the Q&A session. We have quite a number of questions from the viewers today. First is from Sharifah Sabrina. Sabrina said, Assalamualaikum speakers. In your opinion, is making demonstration, for example, the demonstration on Open the Gate that took place on March 30, 2021, is portraying bad behavior? What's your take on this? Perhaps Tan Sri can go first.
I want to comment on two things before I forget. One is the last quotation that Darwisy tunjuk. The branch that bears fruits is always lower, something like that. We have got this saying in our own, ikut resmi padi lagi berisi lagi tunduk. So, in other words, it's always there within ourselves, within our environment, but we never bother to look at our environment. We must look at somebody else's environment because we always discount what we've got is no good. The gems that we talked about, it's never our gems. It's somebody else's gems. I mean, if you talk about diamonds, for example, there's never diamonds in Malaysia, but that doesn't mean that Malaysia is not a gem, because the gem is us. It's not something outside us. You know, so you need to understand that it is always within us that makes us what we are. And the last statement that Izzat kata tadi, what was that? When you talk about this Gen X, Gen Y, Gen, I'd never believe this. This is a creation of somebody else to shape who you are. I'll give you a simple example. When I was young, the word teenager wasn't popular. Later on, the word teenager becomes popular, and somebody coined the word teenager because of the market, because of marketing. Masa tu, the market has been saturated. Now they want to sell this to somebody else. They create a market called a teenager. And everything now is directed to the teenager. And people say, hey, the teenager needs this, teenager needs that, teenager needs this, and they create another market. Now that market is already saturated, then they begin to segment. And Gen X, Gen Y, Millennial Gen, Google Gen, but they're digital natives. You know, these are all a way of shaping your mind to redirect ourselves to who we are. We are human beings. Nobody talks about us that we are born as human beings. We must be called a digital native. In other words, we are born with a computer with us. When we are basically a human being, nobody tells us that we are human being first. Then all the other comes second. I think we need to be very careful, especially youngsters, that all these terminologies are introduced. Human capital, they are all introduced for a certain purpose, and sometimes to distract us from the way of thinking that we are supposed to be in the context of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is now the reference source that is missing, because people keep on referring to it. How many of us talk about Insanul Kamil? We are Insanul Kamil. We want to be. But we often talk about Gen X, Gen Y, this native, that native, because the Insanul Kamil is no longer the main vocabulary that we talked about. I don't know whether you read my last article. I talk about, we want to bring back the word berkhalwat, because that makes us more beradab if you know berkhalwat. That means you stay close to your God. You stay close to yourself. You spend time in silence to understand who you are, rather than, you know, making noise all the time through all sorts of gadgets and stuff like that. Every time we open our eyes, we open our radio at the same time, open our devices at the same time. We have no time for ourselves to understand who we are. You talk to your friends more often than you talk to yourself. And that's where we begin to lose some of these adab. You say, so some of these things are the broader caveat that we need to understand where we come from. Yeah. So coming to the question just now, I need to understand the context. If I understand that well, right? I remember I was contacted by this group of people that they want to discuss things about the opening the gate. Yeah. And they give me time at 2:30, if I'm not mistaken, right? And I told them 2:30, I'm not free. If you want, I can wait for you at 4 o'clock. I will discuss with you. Yeah. And I told them to discuss with the deputy rector, if I'm not mistaken. They said they don't want to discuss with the deputy rector. They want to discuss with the rector. So if you want to discuss with, fine. Can you wait at 4 o'clock? Or they said no. If you don't, at 1 o'clock, we will demonstrate. You know, your judgment, whether there is adab ataupun tidak, that's your judgment. You know, I will not be able to cancel my appointment when we made much earlier, and my adab is to, you know, to honor the promise that I've made, regardless of what you think. And this group of people who I don't know who they are, yeah, and they say they want to meet at 1 o'clock, and it was almost a demand. But not 1 o'clock, we will demonstrate, and that's the picture that Darich showed. They demonstrate. After that, I have nothing to do with them. Bagi saya, orang ni tak beradab, especially when they come from different cultures. Yeah, tak faham adab kita. I have nothing to do with them. I say, you go and sort your own problems. I have nothing to do with you. Then you make your own judgment, whether it is right or wrong. I've no. For me, it is not what I expect of an intellectual student who say, okay, the rector is busy. Let's wait at 4 o'clock. and let's have discuss. After all, if I close the gate for another 2 hours, I will not die. I mean, nobody died. By 4 o'clock, maybe we got the solution. So this way, when I come back in our context, we cakap tentang budi bicara tadi. How do you come at the decision? And when you talk about humility at that particular point, I thought there's no humility at all. You want to demand just your rights because you think yet this is your rights and nobody else has got any rights over this. So that's my response. I don't know what Darwin's response would be, but yeah, that's my take on this.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Perhaps Darich would like to add.
For me, the question again, I think it's about since I believe there is still audiences who just came in, and the question is about all right, making demonstration and open the gate that took place on 30th of March 2021 is portraying bad behavior. What's your take on this? My answer is very brief. I think Tan Sri had explained his opinion, but my answer will be manners is something that we can put whether it's right or it is wrong straight away, because maybe they can, by having demonstration, we can't really understand what kind of demonstration is that. If they were to have some sort of demonstration that having good manners, I think it's acceptable. But if they were to do demonstration without going through due process, for example, if they raise concern straight away through demonstration, I believe it's not like a bad manner. It's more to you abuse the due process, in which is not professional. So if not professional is not a good manner, and then it's a bad manner. But if they have run through due process and then they speak up within the reasonable concept of discussion, I believe it's depend on the situation. And I would like to touch on one story of Prophet Musa when he learned with Prophet Khidir, and where Prophet Musa asked who is the siapa yang manusia paling pandai di dunia, and then some sort of thing he got to know that Nabi Khidir is more clever than him. So he went throughout the seas, throughout the very long journey to just only seeking knowledge from Nabi Khidir. And then throughout that journey, even he learned nothing except for wisdom behind 3 extraordinary situations. So I believe in this famous story, I would like to portray that first, when we were to put into situation that we want to work for something, of course we should work for it with our utmost effort. If the process should take long process, and then we should work for it, and somehow whatever happened, we might do some mistake. For example, Prophet Musa, he did breach his promise. Prophet Khidir said, "Innaka lan tastati'a ma'iya sabra." You can never be patient with me. And then Prophet Musa said, "I can be patient. I guarantee I can be patient." And somehow he can't. So in this story also, Allah taught us that even a clever person sometimes has shortcoming. So in this kind of situation, I believe what would be the best option is to find a middle point of having balanced interest. So I'm not in the demonstration, so I'm not there during the demonstration happened. But I some sort of hear the opinion from student, and I some sort of heard some opinion from administration. So what I can conclude is that it's depend on how the students react towards situation. There might be a good way on how to portray it, and there might be students who use the situation and misuse the due process. I said I will answer briefly, but it took longer than what I expect. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you so much, Brother Darwish, and also Tan Sri, for your answer just now. We have quite a few questions here. Next one is from Sister Khaira Mustafa. Sister Khaira asks, in your opinion, what is the best manners we can practice when we heard slander about others? Sri can go first.
Maybe you start with Darwish first.
All right. Okay, we're Darich.
I think this is very much relatable. You know, even if we were to scroll social media, maybe Tan Sri can't relate this because Tan Sri don't use handphone. But Tan Sri, we struggle a lot using our smartphone. We tend to, this ustad did something that are not acceptable. Oh, this group of family have some sort of problem that is actually if we were to be put into ordinary people, it can be settled. So we were put into a situation where everything is shared to each other, and somehow it's very vulnerable because we don't know whether it's right, whether it's wrong. And I believe the concept has been taught by our religion, tabayyun, to seek for details. And somehow the committee from Sumayyah also mentioned earlier in their video, if you don't know, and then shut up, close your mouth. So I think that will be two brief suggestion of mine. If you were to hear any kind of slander, first, if you want to help, or if you think you are the one who should settle the matter, and then seek for details and handle things accordingly. Like I think Izzatun also a law student. The way how we handle dispute is not to judge in the first expression we can receive, but to seek for details as well as to hear from both sides. And if we don't want to enroll and go through to that long process to have that detail, and then just shut up. Don't put yourself into that hard situation, because I'm not sure if I were to be put into that situation, I'm not sure if I can survive. So please avoid before it turns to be in your situation.
My take on this thing, though, is my take on this, handphone is an option. I'm a generation that lives without handphone until perhaps at the age of 40 or 50, and then only handphone comes into my picture. When I became a vice chancellor at the age of 40, I was given a handphone, my first handphone. Yeah, and I tried to live with it. I can't live with it. It is an interference in my lifestyle, and therefore I opted not to have a handphone, because I think my serenity, my peaceful living, my way of life, my habits, if you were to use Darwish punya term, is more important than this handphone. So from then on, I didn't use a handphone. And therefore, it's an option for you to decide. If I'm a weak person, I cannot understand the slander, stuff like that. Why do I need to go into that? You know, it's just like if I'm given a choice, alcoholic drink and fruit juice, I know I'll be addicted to an alcoholic drink. Why do I need to attempt? Why do I need to buy? Why do I need to keep this alcoholic drink? Because at the end of the day, he or it will poison me. You have got an option to have or not to have not the handphone. Nobody dies without a handphone. I am your example. I run 4 universities without a handphone, including IIUM. If you think I'm not successful because of the handphone, then I'll buy a handphone tomorrow. Yeah, but I think a handphone is not a necessity of life. This is a thing that you need to understand. People are promoting handphone to you as though it is a necessity in life. It is not a necessity in life. We are all being brainwashed to think that, okay, you need to buy, fine, there's no problem. Everybody buy. My daughter say, I want to buy this handphone because somebody else has got a handphone. You know, I want to be in the group. If it's not, then I'll be seen as a weird people, and I'm not part of that. You know, you are doing this to please other people, not to please yourself. And this is where the adab comes in again. What are you doing things for? I understand what Darwisy say. Do this for other people, but buying handphone for other people just to make you look good, I don't think that's a reason to it. So my first question is to young generation: do you really need one? Some people tell me, then Tansi, what happened to emergency? For the life of me, there is no emergency so far, na'udzubillah, that needs a handphone. You know, and in fact, it's worse. I just discovered sometimes when I want to call people on a handphone when there's emergency, the handphone is not on. You know, sometimes the office had an emergency, I call the handphone is not on. So if it's emergency, the handphone must be on all the time. So all these are excuses that the market give you so that you become the victims of the handphone. Now, let me tell you, with the handphones now, there's a lot of issues that change us. One is about the likes things. You know, I receive complaints from people sometimes that our students open their Mahallah room for people to see what they've got. So at the end of the day, they got the likes. You know, you're sacrificing your whole privacy, your whole dignity, just because you want to get a like. What is the value of these likes? 3,000 likes. So what? Does it make you a better person? All these are shiftings of values that youngsters or people who have phone do not think deeply. You know, I used to be a tobacco advocate. I was against tobacco, and I understand tobacco companies and the telcos company works in similar ways. Give you an example. The tobacco company, before long, they know that tobacco is addictive. For 50 years, they never announced that tobacco is addictive. In fact, they sell tobacco as a lifestyle. And they use celebrities. So you want to be like the celebrities, you smoke all sorts of brands of cigarettes. All right? Because you want to be known as celebrities. And what do? Finally, you get hooked to the cigarettes. Yeah. And statistics shows us premature death of cigarettes are a lot more than people who do not smoke. Right? Now you have secondhand cigarettes and all that. I'll cut the story short. Now look at what telcos are doing. Telcos will say, you can call. Darwish, you can call your mother and speak for as long as you want. You know, the rate is very, very low. Little do we know that is cultivating an addictive behavior. You get hooked to your handphone. If you call your mother, that's fine. But when you finish your mother, you call your friend. When you finish your friend, because you want to stay on that addiction all the time. They never reduce the rate for the sake of they want you. They want you to get hooked on this idea of speaking a lot. And statistics tells us there's a lot of people using handphones, but the quality of conversation is almost zero. Yeah. So these are issues that we need to introspectively look whether you need a handphone or not. I've decided I don't need one. Alhamdulillah, until now I survive. But my lifestyle would probably need to be different from your lifestyle. In other words, I don't have to, to be worried about who's calling, who's not calling. You don't have a handphone, nobody calls you. I'll tell you that for sure. Yeah. Orang kata, ambil lah telefon, nanti menteri nak telefon. Menteri never call you because you have a handphone. You're just pretending that as though you're important. Ada handphone, Perdana Menteri akan telefon, Menteri akan telefon, orang besar-besar akan telefon. But if you don't have one, nobody calls you, and you're just who you are. And if you talk about humility, it's a very humbling sort of experience that don't receive any call from anybody. You know? So this is not an easy question. It's a question of choice. You need to decide. You need to find out what you want to be. How much of adab can you maintain if you use certain things or do certain things? Or do you think that is more important than the adab? All these are decisions that you need to make as youngsters, as people are growing up. I'm not saying handphone is bad. Some people can have a handphone but actually do not use as a handphone. They use for texting or something like that. That's probably is slightly better. But that is a choice that you make. I don't have a definite answer. But for me, I know that handphones do not serve my purpose. And therefore, I don't long for one. Neither do. And I also use this in USM I'll use this to tell my students, if the vice chancellor do not have a handphone, why must you have two handphones? Some of them have two handphones. You know, some of them have got three. I told them, you got only 2 years. Why do you have three handphones? What's the other one used for? The other lah CiTRA dia. So there's no quick judgment of this. You need to decide whether you want to have a handphone atau tidak, depending on what you want to be and how you want to live your life. That would be my answer for this.
And see if I can respond a little bit. Just
yes.
I think the audiences can also agree or disagree for the option to have smartphone. But if I just want to clarify for the students, if you need one, of course, during this online learning and whatnot. And what I can also reiterate is to apply the golden rule and even ITSAR. If you apply golden rule, if you know that you should act towards others as if you expect how you should be treated, and then you will understand on how you should react on any news, including slander and also any other things like that. So, and even if you apply ITSAR to put the others' interests as the top priority, even better than yours, you should understand even better, and just put the shoes of those who are being slandered to your shoes, and then you will understand how much you expect people to understand yourself. So I believe it's simple. We should react as how we expect people will react towards ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri and Brother Darwish, for your answers. I feel like it's interesting because we have both speakers from different generations, Tan Sri and also Brother Darwish. So we got to see answers also from different perspectives. So
it's interesting if your generation can live for maybe 2 years without a handphone, then you can feel the fullness of living without a handphone. Then you can make comparison. I make a comparison because I've lived in a place where there's no handphone. Now there's a place I can make the comparison. I can make the choice. You don't have the choice. You are born with a handphone.
Handphone is like the essential part of everyone's life nowadays.
I'll give you another. There's a study made. I've shared these studies before. It's a study I think maybe 2 years ago. And they tanya, the first question was, how many of the people who use handphones can live without one? Yeah. So these are a sample of 10 countries, including Malaysia and India. The rest are developed countries, Japan, Germany, US, and stuff like that. And they asked these questions, and for the Malaysian, they kata 77% mengatakan, I cannot live my life without the handphone. 77%. Yeah. India, 68% cannot live their life without the handphone. Japan, 25%. Germany, 33%. The developed technological countries can live without the handphone. Majority of them. The undeveloped countries technologically cannot live. Now, they ask why. You know, we thought the Japanese would not live because technology is all around them. But it's a different thing, and they know why. And the Japanese and Germans say, these are supplement to life. This is not life. For us, this is life. Hilang handphone, menangis. Handphone hilang, everything is gone. My world has crumbled. You know, and they make a very good analogy, and I want to share this analogy. They kata handphone is just like a toilet. You go to the toilet when you want to use it, and that's why it's 25%. You don't spend your time in the toilet, but Malaysians seem to spend their time 77% in the toilet, whether they want to use it ataupun tidak. They spend their time in the toilet, just like the Indians. It is a shift of mind. What we do and what other people do are not the same, because they understand the technology better. They don't want to be slave to the technology. We don't mind being slave to the technology, and therefore our attitude to technology is quite different. It's a very interesting study. Thank you.
Very interesting study, Tan Sri, because as I said just now, handphone for the generation right now, including me, of course, being the younger ones, it's like something that is so very essential, an integral part of our life. Especially now that we are living in the pandemic, where we are studying online, where everything, almost everything, if I have to say, need to use the handphone. But I also agree that it's admirable how some people in the past, how the older generations, they seems to be more, they can adapt well even without the handphone. So thank you once again, Tan Sri and Brother Darwish. We actually received quite a few number of questions, but we're unfortunately running out of time. Is it okay to proceed with just one more question before we end the session?
I'm
All
okay.
right. Okay. So this question is from Sister Nur Atira Imani. Sister Atira say, Assalamualaikum. We are encouraged to keep silence even we don't like it, so we're not being rude. However, sometimes we should speak the truth even if it is hard. What is the best way to deliver it? I think this question is actually quite related to another question by this one Sister Sauha, where she also asks your views and opinions where older people kept using the word tak berkat and tak halal cards to win an argument. So I think these questions are interrelated.
Okay. I think the key word to the question is truth. You need to tell the truth in all circumstances, no matter whether you tell it with politeness or you tell it with rudeness. Itu je. Yeah. But you need to tell the truth somehow or other, because that's our mission in life. What is education for? Education is to seek the truth, not to pass exams, not to get jobs. That is secondary. You get jobs and you lie, and that is not what education is for. Yeah, to plagiarize, to get a first class honors, you plagiarize. Then that's not education, because you violated the first rule, is to get into truth. So to me, the word truth becomes important. Well, now orang tua ni, of course, the second question, you need to tell them politely. I mean, dia pun ada air muka. In our context, dia ada air muka, tambah pula dia orang tua. So you need to explain them maybe in many words, why this ought to be so. Why handphone is so important. Nenek, why handphone is so important? You need to tell them politely why. And I think once you get that this is where the decorum comes in, this is where the adab comes in, this is where it's so important that you don't want to do certain things just because you don't want to offend other people, which is not right. You have to do it in such a way that you don't offend them, but the message gets through. And the problem now is sometimes you get the message through, but with very, very offensive, in a very offensive way. I think that's where the balance is, and that's where the adab comes into picture. Darwish talk about Al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali has 4 principles on this: wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. Yeah. At the end of the day, what did he say? Justice must come first, through courage, temperance, and wisdom. The end point is justice, and justice is about truth. And if you dispense with truth, you never get justice, then you are not doing what you're supposed to do in the context of adab. And the 4 things that I talk about, akhlaq, dakar, amanah, and bestari, it mirrors to what Al-Ghazali say, except that it's in our own words. And the wisdom of Al-Ghazali is a universal wisdom. The Greek used it, the Roman used it, the Chinese used it. It's a universal wisdom. It doesn't belong to Al-Ghazali alone in that sense. It is shared. And people can make this connection because we belong to the same set of values. And I think that's what's important at the end of the day. We can connect with each other if we preserve the adab, because adab is in this context almost universal. Yes, thank you very much.
Brother Darich, perhaps you'd like to add something?
Actually, I said whatever Tan Sri has said, if I can. But I believe all of us would like to concur with Tan Sri. The wisdom behind that is to speak the truth, and I believe that will be the utmost answer for the question. But somehow Sauha, Sister Sauha also touch on tak berkat or tak halal. I believe it's something that beyond definition. It's hard to define berkat. It's hard to define good and even good and whatnot. So I believe we should be clear on this. Allah also share with us the concept of wala talbisul haqq bil batil. The haq will remain a haq, batil will remain batil. For example, if we were to to enter into a period of time where people started to say that LGBT is good, when majority of people say LGBT is good, we should stand with the haq that LGBT is not what our religion allow us to agree with. So I think that that's also perceived to what Tan Sri have said, that we should stand for the truth lah. And secondly, whatever it's not good remain not good in despite of whatever intention we have behind it. Matlamat tak menghalalkan cara katanya. So I think that would be my hold on this. And sometimes I do understand the students. We always being put into situation where people say that this thing is tak berkat, that thing is tak berkat. So my humble advice is those who say that tak berkat or tak bagus tu, maybe you should thought you should show the direction, what is the berkat way of doing things. And I believe if we were to live in a community where despite of having unsettled dispute all the ways, but let us improve and change our community towards reaching understanding together. If things is not true, and then let us bring them towards reaching the truth lah. I believe to speak truth is also a responsibility and also an adab. At the end of the day, that will be also adab to your creator, adab to yourself, and also adab to the others to stand for the truth.
Izzat, can I just add one more? I mean, because Darwin brought in the LGBT thing. I think LGBT thing is now getting bigger and bigger, and
Yes,
I think we are
indeed,
not, we are not understanding this well. Yeah, we are talking about LGBT. Yeah, you're talking about LGBT in one frame of mind. Now, this Kuliah of Medicine has done tremendous work. Maybe you do not know about this. They are now looking at this problem of transgender, not an LGBT as such, transgender as a medical problem. They use the word gender dysphoria. Ya, maknanya ini bukan soal human rights. Ini soalnya satu penyakit ketidakselesaan dengan jantina sendiri. You know, it's just like I'm wearing a shirt and I'm not comfortable with this shirt. What do I do with it? Do I change it? Do I tear it? What do I do with it? And they've settled this issue on gender dysphoria. And I think they've shifted the argument from a human rights argument, LGBT, to a medical issue. And I think that's a fantastic way of looking at solution. We don't get trapped in somebody else's definition. We create our own definition with a definite solution. And Alhamdulillah, you know, from that I've been noticing them for the last 10 years. Ada orang yang dah cerai isterinya of the same sex, marry another woman, have a family, you know. Ada orang that come back, pergi haji, balik pergi umrah, ya. Ada orang yang dah berniaga, you know, and move away from this maksiat that they have created. They create a very halal source of income. The hospital now is giving, quote unquote, a treatment for them to remove all this enlargement that they've got among themselves. In other words, we have solved the problem without even mentioning the word LGBT. Yeah, and I think this is wisdom, this adab, and this is what we want to promote. And I worry now. I'm going to share with you the worry when I read some of this news mengatakan orang-orang transgender ini are not allowed to be in the mosque. Selagi dia tak keluar, dia tak buang apa tu, they are not allowed to be in the mosque kerana dia mengganggu. Dia mengganggu the community in the mosque. Yeah. And I think there's one fatwa coming out already in one state. They kata you cannot go to the mosque. Now this happens in Europe. All these transgender are creating their own mosque. Imamnya orang dia, Bilalnya orang dia, Siaknya orang dia, of course the makmum semua orang dia. Now you've got another mosque for the Muslims transgender. And what does it tell us about our religion? We can't accommodate this kind of a problem. They need to be, segregated with their own mosque. And that's because we have not thought this thing through. We just create another solution on somebody else's frame, and then we get caught in this issue. So I wish the students can think about this as well, because there are, I'm sure, transgender, or at least tendency for transgender in our midst. How do you educate these people before they get to the level that we probably cannot condone? Now, to be honest with you, we are working with more than 200 transgender, not only in Malaysia, across the region, from Cambodia, from Indonesia, from Brunei, from Vietnam, from Thailand. All of them want solution. But we cannot say because you're transgender, you cannot do this and that, and we are not solving their problem, and then they shy away to go something else. So I hope I find this this meeting is a very, very important one. Yeah, and I want to congratulate Sumayyah. I want to congratulate Darwish and also Izzat for taking this. And for the people who is listening, I don't know how many of them are still listening, but if they are there, Alhamdulillah. So I hope we can create a bridge of discussion with adab, that we can solve many of the problems of the university and make sure IIUM stays as the beacon of truth. Yeah, that I want to make IIUM the beacon of truth. What we say has got meaning to other people, that people can actually trust us because we're saying the truth all the time, inshallah. So thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so much, Tan Sri and Brother Darwish, for such a wonderful session with us tonight. It's really interesting to see how the definition of what is taught to be rude is changing with the errors and graces that were once considered important, now becoming a thing of the past. And I stand with my previous statement that living a life of immorality is considered a normal behavior nowadays. And I hope that we as a community can build one large community imbued with a caring spirit, moral awareness, and spiritual enlightenment. Thank you once again, Tan Sri and Brother Darwish. And as the saying goes, for every beginning, there's an end. And we have reached the end of our program today. Once again, I would like to remind everyone to fill in the feedback form that has been provided in the comment section and the description box. I'd like to thank both of our speakers for such a fruitful discussion, and thank you so much for spending your time with us. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We truly appreciate it. On behalf of Mahallah Sumayyah and the collaborators, I would like to apologize for any mistake or shortcomings throughout the program. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to say happy birthday to our beloved Rector. You're such an inspiration to many of us here. May Allah bless you, Tan Sri, with everlasting happiness and joy.
It's a good birthday gift tonight, speaking to you all, inshallah.
I'm glad. All right. Thank you once again to all our viewers, and we hope that you managed to gain manfaat from this session. With that, I end our talk with a recitation of Tasbih Kifara and Surah Al-Fatiha. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Okay, good night. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Thank you, Brother Darwish.
My pleasure. See you next time.
Inshallah.